Everybody, This Week in America. Great to have you with us on the program. Website is thisweekinamerica.us. As mentioned, our guest on the program is author Michael Schaible. He's a Nebraska-born poet, writer, former welder who loves to write short, humorous stories for the young and the old. He tries to add his own drawings to create more vividness in the imagination of the readers. He's married for 22 years. They're enjoying a life full of adventures, although not the magical kind that he writes about in many of his books. Other than writing, he is interested in arts and in science. The new book we're talking about is called Timekeepers. Michael Schaible with us on This Week in America. Michael, welcome to the program. It's great to have you with us on the show today.
Well, thanks.
Really enjoy your work. Timekeepers is the newest book, and let's talk about that. This is intended to be comedy science fiction for all ages of readers. The drawings you created as we're reading, and they're very helpful because you can sort of picture the book as we're going through that. It's about two New York college graduates getting involved with future timekeepers of the world. Main settings are New York, Florida, and Andros Island. Let's talk a little bit about this comedy science fiction. Talk about doing this because you've got great science fiction elements there, and you've got humor as well. How difficult was that in writing a book using humor?
Oh, not too bad. I had a lot of time when I was welding to think about everything I was doing, and then when I got off work, I'd write it down.
A lot of this is like your imagination, and I know that you spend a lot of time walking during the day. Is that time? I mean, as I'm reading your books, I get the impression your mind is always working. You're always coming up with something. Is that true? You've always got a story that's going on that you're trying to play out in your mind?
Oh, absolutely. I've always got something going. I can't stop it.
Well, yeah, and besides the writing, I mentioned the illustrations, the drawings that you use. Talk about that because that's a whole separate skill that you've really perfected as well. And it really adds another element to the book, doesn't it? As you're reading, you're sort of graphically seeing what's happening as well.
Oh, yeah. I have a lot of fun drawing, and I like to share it in my books with poetry and everything else if I can.
Yeah, there's so many elements. We're talking about the new book, Timekeepers. Our guest on the program is Michael Schaible. If you go to Facebook, you'll find all the information, facebook.com/MC Schaible. That's SCHAIBLE. Or you can go to our website, thisweekinamerica.us, and link on directly to Michael's Facebook page and get all of the information there. I mentioned comedy science fiction. This really is for all ages as well. As I'm thinking that as I'm reading it, this really is appropriate if you're a teen reader or someone a little up in years like I am. You really go across all age groups with your stories, don't you?
Oh, I try to, yes.
Yeah, and do you try these out on, I mentioned the wife, does she spend some time, does she go through, do you like say, hey, look at this and let me know how I'm coming with it?
My wife?
Yes.
No, she doesn't.
Oh, she just finished it. She buys a book like everybody else at the bookstore and comes home and reads the book. I thought maybe you ask her for some advice as you go through. By the way, the book is available ebook, or you can buy it with the hardcover, and that's available at Amazon.com. Information available at our website, thisweekinamerica.us. Let's talk about the premise of the story. As I mentioned, two recent New York college graduates. We've got Carl Davidson and John Monroe. Talk about where this whole concept, this whole story idea came from.
Where did it come from?
Yeah, where do you get this idea from?
Thinking about science and how it would be to time travel and how it would be played out.
Well, yeah, and as you're reading, it's like, okay, where are they now in terms of time frames? And the name of the book is Timekeepers. Tell us the significance of that.
Oh, the Timekeepers?
Yeah. Where do you get the title? And I mentioned in the beginning with future timekeepers of the world they're dealing with. How does that play into the story?
Well, on the front cover, it's like a symbol of timekeepers. And then as it goes on, Carl Davidson and John, well, I just had to imagine them sitting in the alley and everything. Well, it's
Yeah, and they're accosted in the alley. That's an interesting story. And you've got Martha and Susan that are sort of their dates that enter into this whole exploration that they're on. So you've got Carl and John. You've got the other characters in the book, and the whole story is fascinating. It's in the book Timekeepers. That's a new book by Michael Schaible, our guest on This Week in America. I mentioned the settings there. Do you get the idea first, or you develop characters and then go out from there?
Well, I kind of more or less made a blueprint of how the story was going to go, like a map.
Yes.
And then I'd try to write the story in and add the characters, and then try to do as little filler as I can, because I like to keep this story away from big words people's eyes will stumble on.
Yes.
And where too much description, you kind of get lost in that.
And so often a writer will get all of these adjectives and throw them in, and by the time you get to the end of the sentence, you forgot what the purpose at the beginning of the sentence was. And you don't do that. You cut right to the chase. You've got a great blog where you talk about the writing process and some of the tips that have made you successful in writing several books. And you talk about be daring, creative, write something that's new and worthwhile. Is that sort of the challenge for you all the time, is to be able to really move the story along? It's a short story, and be able to maybe to express something different to the reader. So it's not the average book that they're reading.
Well, in Timekeepers, science I think about quite a bit, and what would happen if a country would get a hold of a time machine, and like there's a war, World War III, and they would send them back to try to cut out the war, and then the next phase there'd be a war, a slight war, and more timekeepers, and then it would build on where there wasn't any war in the next phase of time.
Yes.
Time comes in segments.
Which is a fascinating concept. Yeah, the way that you've written is fascinating. It holds your attention, and before you know it, you've gone through the book with a great deal of enjoyment. You've talked about sort of the golden rule of writing is what you read is what you want to write. Is this the type of reading that you do? Talk about what influences you, what types of books really influence, first of all, you find entertaining, and second of all, may influence your writing style.
Well, I don't really have any books that influence me. Like I say, I kind of get lost in a lot of the descriptive word. Don't even know where it's going.
Yeah, exactly.
And I always try to keep away from that.
Talk about the arousing, something that you believe in is arousing feelings from the reader. When we read Timekeepers, how do you want us to feel? Do you want us to be surprised as we're turning the page? Do you want us to chuckle as we're turning the page? You want us to think about this concept of timekeeping? What are sort of some of the thoughts in your mind as you're writing? What kind of reaction do you want from us, the readers?
I want them to get a concept of how the world would be in the future, and if an outlaw what happened if an outlaw got a hold of that?
Yes.
Time machine, and just started doing something wrong.
You know, a lot of people are good storytellers. We all know who they are, but they don't necessarily make good writers. Either they've tried it and failed, or we can't imagine them sitting down and writing. Talk about the difference. And you obviously come up with the story, but then you have to take that and you have to put that down on paper and make it entertaining. Talk about storyteller versus actually story writer.
Storyteller.
Yeah, you run into people and that are good storytellers. These are people that you can sit and listen to them, and they paint this vivid picture, and you know exactly what they're talking about. And you write that story. Talk about for you the process of writing it, taking this this concept in your mind, like in your new book, Timekeepers, and actually sitting down and writing that out. How difficult a process is that for you? How long did it take you to write Timekeepers?
Oh, quite a while. I don't get it done in a few days.
Was it? Yes.
Because I had to draw the pictures, and pictures probably took longer than the story.
Well, because the pictures are, like I said, you do an excellent job with that as well. You mentioned that you work from a blueprint. Does that change during the course of the book as you're sitting writing Timekeepers? Were there things that you decided, okay, I planned on going in this direction, but I think now I'm going to go a little bit more in that direction? Does it evolve in the writing process?
Well, I do some research, quite a bit of research.
Yeah.
And where things are, what things should be like, and then I try to make a story out of that.
Talk about the length of research. When you're writing science fiction, how much research do you put into a book, a science fiction book?
Quite a bit. Quite a bit of research goes into all books, I'm sure.
Yeah, and I would assume that when you're talking about something, you're not just making it up. There's sort of a basis in fact for what you're talking about. But the book is Timekeepers. Michael Schaible is our guest on the program. His website, you can go to Facebook and follow Michael. It's facebook.com/MC Schaible. That's SCHAIBLE. The book we're talking about is Timekeepers. On your blog, you talk about tips for cultivating good writing habits. Let's talk about some of the tips because there are a lot of people that think, boy, I'd like to write. I just don't know if I have the discipline. I don't know if I have the imagination. What are just a couple of tips that you use to develop good writing habits?
Well, I write down with a pencil first. That way I don't have to worry about my grammar, my spelling.
No, I like that.
Yeah,
I like
go
that.
over that last. I go over that kind of last. And when I'm on the computer, then I can always add more, subtract something, and go to another concept of the book.
And the book we're talking about.
But I always have to make sure everything falls in place.
Well, yeah, that's as you go through, especially in a story like this, because it's somewhat intricate in the plot line. So you need to make sure that this is following like it's supposed to. The book is Timekeepers. Mike Schaible, our guest in the program. A couple minutes left in the show. Let's talk a little bit about some of the common advice that's out there, and there always seems to be rigid rules. And I know one thing you talk about is be wary of the rules. Just sort of do it your way. When you sit down to write Timekeepers or Eye of the Sleeping Dragon or other books, do you throw the rules aside and it's like, okay, I'm going to make something that's entertaining to me. I think that'll be entertaining to other people. I'm just going to tell a good story. Is that how you approach it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I put everything aside and just do it my way.
And it's been successful. What's it like when you get response, when someone reads the book and gives you the compliments, and you've been receiving a number of compliments on the book? What's that like when they take your creative vision and you've allowed these people to escape for a couple of hours, really into a world where they're in total enjoyment? What's that feel like when people say, I really like that book?
Well, it's fantastic. I tell you, it's like drawing a picture, painting a picture, and somebody likes it or they don't.
Yes.
You know.
What actually, as you're mentioning that, what came first? What did you enjoy drawing first, or writing first, or how did that work out?
Well, anything can inspire me. A poem or a drawing, I might have done ahead of time, and then I try to write a story out of that.
What are you working on now?
What am I well, if I get enough readers, and I'd like to write a Western.
Do you have a concept in mind? I won't tell you.
I have an outline already drawn out of how it's going to go, but if I don't get enough readers, I'm not going to.
Yes.
My stories were at first for Christmas presents for my family.
Okay. So that's how this whole concept started then.
Yeah, that's how it all started, for Christmas presents. But then I got into I was having trouble with my grammar and spelling, so I took it to a publisher, and they seemed to enjoy it. So I just went ahead and published it.
And the rest is history. The book we're talking about is Timekeepers. That's a new book by Michael Schaible. You'll find information available. The publisher is Dorrance Publishing. It's available, of course, at Amazon. The website we'll refer you to is facebook.com/MC Schaible, Schaible. Information there on the book. It's called Timekeepers. You've really done an excellent job, and I assume the family and friends are very impressed with this. Something started off just a nice little Christmas present. Suddenly it's being sold to people literally all across the world. It's got to be an exciting time for you.
Oh, yeah.
The story is really an exciting one, and it's called, again, Timekeepers, and it's set in New York, Florida. How do you come up with the settings, by the way? How did you decide where you're going to have the characters end up?
Well, that's research.
Okay.
The research part. Yeah.
And
Timekeepers was my first book that I wrote, but the second book I published.
Okay. Okay. Now, I had the Sleeping Dragon. That's available out there as well. Was that that was the second book that you wrote?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And you get all this information at Michael's website, which is on Facebook. And hopefully we'll have a chance to talk about the newest Michael Schaible creation, which is the Western that he's working on. Michael, a pleasure having you on the program. What a great imagination you have. What a great storyteller you are. I had a great time reading Timekeepers. It's a very enjoyable read. It's not going to take you 3 weeks to sit and go through it. You'll find you'll be turning the pages rapidly to find out what's happening next in the story. Michael, thank you so much for being with us on the program. Good luck with the book. It's called Timekeepers. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks a lot.
Our website is thisweekinamerica.us. You can link on directly to Michael Scheible's website, which is facebook.com/MCSCHAIBLE. And, of course, all that at our website, thisweekinamerica.us.